What happens when the man she used to know, the one she could predict, control, and push around emotionally, no longer exists? When she reaches out, expecting soft replies, the same hunger for closure, but instead finds silence, stillness, composure. That's when the truth hits her, not in a crash, but in a slow, creeping realization. You're not that man anymore. She thought time would keep you frozen, anchored at the same shore, waiting. But you've already sailed. You didn't turn cold, you turned clear. You didn't stop caring, you stopped proving. You didn't vanish to spite her, you outgrew her. That's the quiet revolution of a man who no longer negotiates his worth, but embodies it. This isn't revenge, it's self-respect, calm, surgical, unshakable. And now, every unanswered message, every moment you don't explain, speaks louder than anything you could say. She's not facing the boy she left, she's facing the captain she never saw coming. Men, if you've stopped being who they expected, if you've evolved into a version of yourself they can't reach, start this journey now. Like this video, subscribe to Stoic Station, and drop a 1 if you've walked away from the dock, or a 2 if you're setting sail now. Because what comes next will show you why she thought you'd wait at the shore, and why finding it empty will cut deeper than losing you in the first place. Now, let's dive in. 1. She thought you'd wait at the shore. She was certain you'd still be there, unchanged, unmoved. The same man standing at the same dock, arms wide open, ready to welcome her back. In her mind, time would freeze for her while she wandered. She pictured your heart anchored to the pier, waiting for her return no matter how far she drifted. But tides don't wait, and the sea never stands still. The world moved, and you moved with it. When she finally turns around, the harbor is empty. The man she left behind has already sailed beyond her horizon, and that realization cuts deeper than losing you in the first place. This is loss aversion in its rawest form. People panic not when they lose what they took for granted, but when they see it thriving without them. That's when they feel the full weight of absence, the cold shock that the door they thought would always be open has quietly closed. You didn't leave the shore out of spite. You navigated forward because the storms you faced taught you that there is more ocean ahead than memories behind. You learned that waiting at the dock for someone who may never return is a slow death, and the sea rewards only those who keep moving. Now, when she calls out, she isn't reaching for the man you've become. She's calling to the ghost of who you once were. But ghosts don't answer. You've outgrown that version of yourself, and you're charting new waters with a steady hand and a clear horizon. The question is no longer whether she'll come back. The real question is, if she did, would she even recognize the captain you've become, or would she realize she was never meant to sail beside you again? And just as she starts to wonder, you're already catching the next wind, heading for a place she'll never find. 2. You no longer need her wind to sail. There was a time when her approval was the very air in your lungs, the wind that filled your sails. Every glance she gave, every message she sent, every small sign of affection, those were the currents you depended on to move forward. Without them, you felt adrift, invisible, incomplete. That was the trap of external validation, building your sense of worth on someone else's weather. But the ocean has a way of teaching hard truths. In the stillness between storms, you learned self-reliance. You discovered that you could find your own wind, that you could create motion even when the skies above were still. That shift changed everything. Now her breeze feels small compared to the steady, unshakable current you've built within yourself. She feels it too. This is the endowment effect in reverse. She once believed you needed her to keep moving, but now she sees that the thing she once owned thrives entirely without her touch. Your sails are full not because of her direction, but because of your own course, your own storms, your own discipline. You've learned to generate momentum from purpose, from clarity, from a vision that exists beyond the horizon she can see. And when a sailor masters the art of harnessing his own wind, he no longer waits for someone else to breathe life into his journey. So now, when she reaches out, it's not to offer you anything, it's to see if she still matters to your voyage. But you're already charting waters far beyond her reach. The question isn't whether she'll try to catch your wind again. The question is, if she does, will she realize she's chasing a ship that no longer needs her to sail? And while she wonders, you're already out of sight, building your own weather. 3. The waters around you are guarded now. She can still see your ship from the shore, but that's all she can do. Watch. In the past, it didn't take much to draw you back. A passing glance, a vague message, a breadcrumb tossed into the water could pull you toward her dock. You had no harbor defenses then. Every wave carried her closer, and you let it happen. Your sea was open, and anyone could sail right in. But something changed. The storms taught you that not every ship entering your waters comes with good intentions. You built boundaries, real ones. Now, emotional breakwaters stand like rock walls around you. They're not made of coldness, but of clarity. She feels it in ways she can't quite explain. That's cognitive dissonance at work. Her memory of you as open, reachable, and easily swayed doesn't match the man she sees now. Calm, steady, and untouchable. You're not avoiding the sea, you're steering it. And that is the difference between drifting and commanding. You choose who approaches. You choose which anchors are welcomed and which are cut loose. Access is no longer granted through nostalgia or history. It's earned through respect, and that's a currency she no longer carries. Now, every time she sends a signal, she's confronted with the truth. The open waters she once sailed so freely are guarded, and the captain at the helm has changed. The question is no longer, will he let me back in? But, does my ship even deserve to dock here? And while she wrestles with that answer, you've already turned your bow toward deeper, richer waters, where the unprepared can't follow. The real question for you is, are your waters a fortress, or is there still a dock left open for anyone bold enough to try? 4. You stopped chasing the lighthouse. There was a time when you searched the horizon for her light, convinced it was the beacon that would guide you home. Every night, you scanned the darkness for a signal, believing that if you could just find it, the storm inside you would end. You thought closure was the lighthouse, the fixed point that would calm your seas and give you peace. But the truth is, that light was never meant for you. It was built for her own journey, not to lead you safely back. The danger of chasing closure is that it becomes a mirage. You keep circling the same waters, convinced that just one more loop will give you the answers you crave. But all it does is burn your fuel and keep you trapped in a tide that goes nowhere. That's the trap she expected you to stay in, forever searching, forever waiting. The moment you stopped looking for her light was the moment you found your own compass. You realized you didn't need someone else's signal to navigate your life. You set your sails toward new lands, guided by your own stars, your own clarity. And now the roles have reversed. She's the one scanning the horizon, hoping to catch sight of you, while you're already miles ahead, moving toward a future she'll never be part of. The sea taught you that a man who learns to navigate in the dark can't be lured back by a borrowed light. So the question becomes, are you still standing at the rail, waiting for their beacon to appear, or have you already charted a course so far ahead that even their brightest light couldn't catch you now? Because the moment you choose the latter, you're no longer lost. You're truly free. 5. She lost access because you sailed higher waters. She tells herself you closed the harbor, that you locked the gates and sailed away in anger. But the truth is far less dramatic and far more permanent. You didn't shut her out. You simply outgrew the dock she thought you'd always return to. In her mind, no matter where you drifted, you'd eventually circle back to the same shore, the same version of yourself she once knew. But while she stayed tethered to the same patterns, replaying the same tides, you were charting new seas. You explored deeper waters, faced storms she'll never understand, and found currents that carried you far beyond the map you once shared. And here's where loss aversion cuts the deepest. It's not the sting of rejection that shakes her, it's the realization that evolution has taken you somewhere she cannot follow. She still has your number, your photos, your name. On the surface, nothing's changed. But the man she could once reach at that port no longer exists. The waters you navigate now are calmer yet richer, deeper yet steadier, and not every vessel is built to sail them. She knows this, even if she'll never admit it. You didn't slam the door. You rose so far above the coastline that the old harbor can't even see your sails. She lost you, not because you pushed her away, but because she refused to move forward herself. And now, the only way to reach you would be to evolve into someone who belongs in the waters you've chosen. The question you must ask yourself is simple. Have you truly outgrown the harbor, or are you still tempted to turn back when no one's looking? Because the course you've set will either carry you into horizons she'll never see, or straight back to the port you've already left behind. 6. You're not cold, you're the calm before the storm. She says you've gone cold, as if the warmth that once surrounded her has vanished. But she's wrong. You haven't frozen, you've focused. There was a time when every ripple in her mood, every change in her tone, every sudden wave she created would toss you straight toward her. You were a sailor without an anchor, reacting to each shift in the tide, letting her currents dictate your course. But storms teach discipline. You've learned to master the space between the wave and your response. You don't move just because the water stirs. You don't adjust your sails for every gust of wind. You've built an inner stillness that unnerves her, because calm seas often hide the deepest power. She can't read you anymore, can't stir the waters at will, and that loss of control unsettles her far more than anger ever could. This isn't heartlessness, it's command. Stoic control is not the absence of feeling, it's the mastery of the helm. You still have the tide within you, but now you choose when, where, and for whom it should rise. That choice is what keeps you steady in waters that would sink lesser men. She may call it detachment, but you know it's discipline. And the man who can hold steady in silence is far more dangerous than the one who shouts in the storm. The real question isn't whether you've gone cold. It's whether your calm is a mask you wear for the world, or the unshakable anchor that will carry you through every wave ahead. Because when you become the calm before the storm, you're not bracing for impact. You're deciding exactly when the wind will return. 7. You sail toward legacy, not loops. The man you used to be kept circling the same island, convinced that if you navigated it one more time, the scenery would change. You replayed old storms, thinking they might lead to new horizons, but all they ever brought you was the same tide, the same shore, the same ending. Memories fooled you into believing they were a map, but they were nothing more than driftwood from wrecks long past, fragments of something that once floated, but could no longer carry you forward. She's still there, anchored to those loops, living in the repetition. She mistakes movement for progress, but you know better now. The ocean taught you the difference between reaction and creation. Reaction is staying in the current someone else set for you. Creation is plotting a course that exists beyond what they can see. And that's where you are now, sailing toward legacy, building something that will last far longer than the tide's memory. Your sails are no longer driven by the need to prove anything. To her, to the world, or even to yourself. They're filled with purpose. You're chasing the kind of horizon that leaves a mark, the kind that turns a man's journey into something worth remembering. And once a sailor has felt the pull of the open sea, he never trades it for the confines of the same small bay. So the question becomes, are you truly charting new waters, shaping a legacy that will outlive the storms, or are you still drifting in circles around the same reef, hoping it will somehow become an island worth landing on? Because the man who sails for legacy will never be caught in loops again. 8. Her influence sank when you chose yourself. There was a time when her moods could dictate the course of your entire voyage. One cold word, one delayed reply, and suddenly your compass spun out of control. You weren't steering your own ship. You were tethered to her winds, letting every gust push or pull you in whatever direction she pleased. It wasn't love. It was dependence disguised as connection, and it left you drifting in waters you didn't choose. But then came the day you chose self-respect over reaction. That was the moment the rope snapped. It didn't happen in a dramatic storm. It happened in quiet clarity. You realized you didn't need to respond to every shift in her weather. You didn't need her to steer your ship to feel like a captain. And once that truth took root, her influence sank without a fight. Now, no matter how hard her storms rage, your ship holds steady because you've rebuilt it from the keel up. Your hull is stronger, your sails are reinforced, and your course is set by your own hand. The waves that once knocked you off balance now pass harmlessly beneath you. She didn't lose you when she walked away. She lost you the moment you no longer needed her approval to navigate your life. And that's a kind of loss she can't undo, because it wasn't about cutting her out, it was about letting yourself in. So ask yourself, does anyone else still hold the power to change your direction, or have you fully claimed the helm? Because the man who steers by his own compass can sail through any storm and never be pulled off course again. 9. She no longer recognizes the captain. She scans the horizon, searching for the man she once knew. In her mind, she's looking for the sailor who over-explained his every move, over-apologized for every misunderstanding, and overgave in ways that drained him dry. She's searching for the man who would turn his ship around at the faintest sound of her voice. But that ship is gone, and the man who once captained it has been rebuilt from the keel up. Now, every time she calls out, she's met not by the familiar boy who sought her approval, but by a captain who is calm, deliberate, and entirely beyond her reach. He no longer sails in circles to prove his worth. He charts his course with quiet confidence, steering toward horizons she's never seen. And that calm unnerves her, because the man she knew was easy to sway, but the one she sees now cannot be moved without his consent. The power dynamic has shifted, subtly at first, then permanently. You didn't transform into someone unrecognizable to punish her. You did it to survive, to protect the parts of yourself you once gave away too easily. And in doing so, you became the version of yourself that doesn't need to be understood to be respected. This is the price of neglect. By the time someone realizes what they had, the ship is already far beyond the horizon, its sails catching winds they can no longer control. If she met you today, would she even recognize the man at the wheel? Or would she stand there on the shore, stunned by the realization that the captain who once sailed for her has found seas too vast, too free, and too far gone to ever return? 10. The voyage didn't end, it left without her. She thought the journey ended the day she stepped off the deck, as if her absence would freeze the waters and keep the ship anchored in place. In her mind, she believed she could return whenever she pleased and find you standing there, waiting, ready to welcome her back aboard. But heartbreak was never your dead end. It was the wind that filled your sails and carried you into open waters you'd never explored before. While she lingered on the shore, you crossed entire oceans. You discovered new horizons, weathered storms alone, and learned the language of the sea without needing her as your translator. And the further you sailed, the more you understood a truth that changes everything. You weren't moving to make her regret her choice. You were moving to save yourself, to escape the slow drowning that comes from staying where you no longer belong. Now, your map leads to waters her boat could never survive. You've set a course for destinations that demand more courage, more discipline, and more depth than she was ever willing to bring. And when she finally realizes that you were never waiting at the dock, the weight of that loss will hit harder than any storm, because she'll see that she was never the destination. She was only the turning point. So the question is no longer whether she'll try to come back, it's whether you'll even see the dock again. Because a man who's tasted the freedom of the horizon doesn't look back to the shore. And once you've left for waters this vast, the voyage doesn't end. It simply sails beyond the reach of anyone who thought they could keep you anchored. Men, if there's one thing I want you to take from everything I've just shared, it's this. Your life is not a harbor for someone who walked away. Too many of you are standing at the dock, waiting for a return that may never happen, all while the tide of your own life keeps pulling you towards something greater. This journey we've covered is the shift from being reactive to being in command. It's moving from needing her wind to fill your sails, to creating your own. It's building boundaries so your waters aren't open to every ship that drifts by. It's learning that closure is often a trap, and that self-respect will carry you farther than any explanation ever could. You've seen how evolution, not anger, changes the game. How sailing toward purpose instead of circles creates a legacy no one can take from you. How choosing yourself quietly removes her influence without a fight. And how becoming calm, focused, and deliberate makes you a captain she no longer recognizes, and one she can't reach. The truth is, a man's power is found in his ability to keep moving forward. Not for revenge, not for validation, but because staying still in the wrong place will sink you faster than any storm. She was never the destination. She was only a chapter. The rest of the book, the real journey, is still yours to write. So here's your tactical takeaway. Stop looking back at the dock. The horizon is where your life is built. Every decision you make from here should carry you farther into waters she'll never touch. The question is, will you sail there, or will you keep waiting for a ship that's no longer coming? Your life is not a dock for someone who walked away. It's an open horizon. Every step you take forward, every single one, is living proof you've outgrown the harbor, the one they thought you'd keep returning to. So, keep your hands steady on the helm. Keep your eyes locked on the waters ahead. And never, never trade your course for someone else's tide. If this message hit you, like this video and subscribe to Stoic Station. And drop a comment. My course is set. Now, keep moving. Tap the next video on your screen. Continue your journey forward. Your horizon is waiting. Don't keep it waiting.